big hello and good morning to everybody. How is everybody doing? This is Jeremiah, and we have a webinar today on detail tips and tricks. This is going to be a very fun little webinar for you. As I'm looking at the attendee list, I can see some good land effects power users, and this is definitely, as you know, kind of the power usage of land effects. Most often we hear from people, oh, the detail system, it's like the hidden gem of the software, over and over and over again. And Amanda's got some really great things queued up to show off, to really get the most out of the detail system. Do feel free to chime in with some questions down there at the bottom. And one other little minor note is if you do hear what sounds like a low rumbling or something along those lines anytime, there is some earth mover bulldozer next door doing some construction. So if you're wondering, if you do happen to hear it in our sound tests, we couldn't hear anything, but if you do hear what sounds like a rumbling noise, just know that's that friendly bulldozer, and hopefully they will be done soon. So that all being said, I'm gonna hand this.
Thanks, and welcome everybody. I hope you're ready to really dig into some of the less used but extremely effective detail creation and management tools that you have in your land effects software today. So just kind of as a more of a forewarning, you'll want to have at least a basic background in the detailed tools to be able to follow along with this webinar. I'm going to assume as I go through things that you already know how to save a detail and you already have your Detail Explorer organization sorted out, whether that's by CSI, by project, or some other format. You should also know how to use the basic annotation tools like text, leaders, and dimensions. If you don't know how to do these things, you can still follow along with this webinar, but I do also suggest that you go to our webinar section on our webpage and just kind of go through, you can filter that down by detail and kind of go through all of the detail webinars, or also you can go to our documentation page and just type in details, and that'll bring you over to our basic details documentation to kind of figure out those basic tools. But in this webinar, we're going to go a little bit beyond that. We're also going to go into some things on the plan side, so you should already know how to do things like place a basic detail callout. So through this webinar, we're going to go over some more advanced workflows for details, and we're going to cover some of the land effects tools that you might not be taking advantage of right now, but I really suggest that you do because it will speed up that workflow. So just our detailed agenda for this webinar, you can have a look through that, and we're just going to go straight into it. So I'm here in my plan in AutoCAD, and this is my Silver Pine Park plan that I've created. I've already started my design and assigned a lot of items to standard details that I have in my library. And these are going to be things, I'm just going to pull standard details for things I use all the time, and the detail's not really going to change. They're easy and fast to pull together, so that's kind of what I've done here. But however, now I need to refine this detailed plan a little bit further and start creating my project-specific details. As an example, in this project, I might prefer to create some custom retaining wall transition details. I might have some standard retaining wall details already saved for frequently used manufacturers. But in this project, this one has a few tricky transitions that I want to make very clear to my contractor. So you're probably going to be, let's actually go down here to kind of see what we're going to be going over. Here I have some basic details for all the pavers and the benches and the playground. But here I have this interesting transition going on from the playground up to the sodded area. I have some retaining wall steps here that I want to do with a segmental retaining wall, and I have a concrete walkway behind that, and then a concrete curb behind that, and then I go to my sod. So I want to make a detail that basically does a section through here. I also have these interesting planter walls that are through here, and I've made the decision that I'm going to do those with a segmental retaining wall as well. And so I want to show a cross section through, say, just a standard cross section through one of these planter walls to kind of show how that's going to work. So basically, you're probably going to want be working off of a preliminary hand sketch of your detail that you've either done yourself or you've been provided by your superior to draft up. So you'll have a clear picture already of what you want to do for this detail. And I'm working on my end of this webinar with that hand sketch that I'm going to be drafting up with you guys. So basically, we're going to go over some ways to make the workflow of creating custom details of things that you frequently need to draw just a little bit faster. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is I don't have room on my other, I already have some detail sheets started off for this drawing, but I don't have room on those two detail sheets for these two details that I'm going to do. And they're going to be a little bit longer because they're going to be a profile. So I'm going to make a new layout, and I'm going to do this in a different drawing as opposed to just a different tab in this drawing, like we've been recommending in our sheet setup webinars. And if you've submitted a support ticket, we've probably recommended it as well. It just keeps things separate so that multiple people can work on the project and keeps files smaller. It also prevents the total meltdown of your mind if something goes wrong and one drawing gets corrupted and crashes CAD and you can't reopen it. At least it's just one drawing that you're having to recreate in that situation. So we're going to go ahead, and I've already set things up based on the sheet setup webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and open a meters drawing. I'm in meters, but don't be afraid of that. Everything that I'm doing will work perfectly fine with Imperial. If I say meters or millimeters, just replace it with feet and inches, and it'll work just the same. So I've opened up my meters drawing, and now I'm going to go ahead and go from template, and I'm going to grab my template for my sheet, for my detail sheet, and I'm going to delete these two. Great. So now that that's in here, I'm just going to save this really quick in my my project folder. Just going to name it details 2. Great, and I'm going to set the project. I've already in my original plan back here, I've already set this to a project and started it already. So obviously I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just go into FX admin, go to projects, and here we go, Silver Pine Park. Everything looks good. Okay, and I'm going to pull in my my title block, and I've already set all that up as well. Again, sheet setup webinar. Yep, there we go. And drop that in. And we're almost ready to go. Now I'm going to go to my details tab. And just under templates, I'm going to grab my sheet template and get this started and ready. There we go. So that's ready to receive some details. And just before I go into actually creating the details, I need to do one more thing, and that's to go back to my project. I'll save this. Just my project manager and to the sheet index. Um, and I'm going to assign this sheet. So I've already got a D1 and a D2 already in my project. I'm going to make myself a D3. So to do that, I'm going to click New, and I'm going to call this sheet D3, and that's going to be Details 3. Great, and I'm going to assign that to this layout. I'm actually going to name this layout first. Perfect. We'll go back and we'll assign that. Great. Say OK, and so that's ready for our detail. Now, for my segmental retaining wall detail, um, I'll likely have my preferred material that I'll want to use or that I use very frequently, whether it's a specific manufacturer of retaining wall, or I might have several types of material depending on the look that I want or the strength that I need for the design of whatever retaining wall I'm doing. So basically, I'm going to use for this detail a prefabricated concrete block, but you could extend the techniques that I'm going to do to any kind of block item that you might want to make. You could do this for a typical armor stone block or any material. Jake's done a really great power tip on saving in gate latches and light profiles of light fixtures. So really the sky's the limit for this whole process. But just as an example, we're going to do segmental retaining wall. A good practice would be that if you know that you're going to use a block in the future, like a retaining wall block, and use it in future custom details, then you're going to want to save it into the system. If it's a manufacturer, you can also let us know, and we'll look into possibly making it available in the system by default and getting in contact with them. So that's a really great relationship to kind of start off. So to do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I have a few blocks already set up here that I want to save into my land effects system because I'm going to use these blocks to create details, and I'll probably have pulled these blocks from a manufacturer and from their details or their website, and these are basically the building blocks, if you can think of like Lego, to build your detail. And this is what's going to make designing your details a lot faster. You take a little bit of time at the beginning for the first one and save these in, and you'll save time overall. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to use the Save Block tool. I'm going to go to FX Site. And if you're following along and you want to do this as well, but you might not have the blocks all set up, you can just do a rectangle. These retaining wall blocks, they are 185 millimeters high by 500 millimeters deep, or that's 7¼ inch by 20 inch if for imperial, and the pipe is 150 millimeters or 6 inches. So you can just draw a rectangle using dimensions 150 and 500. Oops, RO. And just put that in there and save that rectangle. But I'm going to do it right from the block. So we go into blocks and drop that down and go to Save Block. It's going to ask you for an insertion point. I'm going to pick here because that means I can very easily stack these up to get the step back that is designed into these blocks. and it's going to ask you to pick everything. Great. Right click, and then it's going to ask you to save. So if you, actually, I'm going to do something a little bit different. That's the regular save blocks method, but what I'm actually going to do is go to my details tab, and if I do the same process under this drill down on the details tab, it'll actually take me to a different place to save my block. So it opened up my detail graphics under blocks instead. And you can see here I've already created 2 new folders, and you can do that as well if you want, if you have specific things that you want to save to pull for details. So I've created a retaining walls folder here, and I've created a drainage folder over here. So I'm going to go retaining walls, and I'm just going to overwrite one of these that I've already saved. So this is my landstone retaining wall, and this is a coping unit. I'm going to name the file appropriately. Click save, yes. And then I'm just going to give it a name so that I can really quickly pull it up and see it when I'm doing my detail. There we go. And for this particular block, I'm going to want 1:1, so it always comes in at the same size because these won't ever change. And I'm going to give it no rotation, but you can feel free to do manual rotation if you want. And just make sure that the units are appropriate for how you draw your details, whether that be millimeters for metric or inches for imperial. You can just pull that down and pick whichever one you need for how you draw your details and have everything already set up in Land Effects. I'm going to press OK, and I'm just going to do that for the rest of them as well. So we're going to go to Save Block again, do an insertion point. I'm going to pick the same point on this standard block, go to the same place, standard, and I'm just going to pull that name, great, and say OK. And then I can save this one as well. Now, this is another really cool trick just to show this block as a little bit different. I've used the hatch, and I've actually pulled that from Land Effects, so it goes on to the right layer and everything. I'll show you how I did that. If I just delete that and then go to hatches under the detail tab, and I just picked out the concrete one because I figured that gave a good, nice, rough look to the front of that, and picked inside. And drop down the scale just a little bit. Great. So I'm going to save that in. Front. And so you can keep doing this and go through everything. I think I've already saved in all my blocks. I've also saved in this and gave it a middle insertion point. So this I did exactly the same thing with the hatch, just to give it a little bit of graphics. So there we go. I've got all my little parts that I know that I'll be able to build my detail from. And I'm going to go ahead and start making the detail. So now on to the detail. Again, I'm going to want to do this in a separate drawing and not back here in my details page, because I want for metric, you're going to want to draw your details in a millimeter unit drawing, and this one right here is in meters. Or for imperial, you'll probably have this file, you might have this file set to feet, but even if it's in inches, you're going to want to start from a blank drawing just to kind of keep everything separate. And especially for the process that we're going to do, I'll go into it, but we're going to use the batch save option. So I'm going to want to save actually my drawing to be able to access it later and re-batch save as necessary if I need to make any adjustments through the process. So I'm going to go ahead, open up myself up a brand new drawing in millimeters or inches if you're in imperial. And I'm going to save that right away because again, I'm going to do the batch save process and I'm going to put 2 details into this file. And I'm just going to call it project details. Great. Now basically everything's ready and I can start building up my detail. So we're just going to go about that, and I'm going to pull down my graphics and go to my detail blocks where I save those in. And I'm going to pull up my drawing that I've done before for this detail. My hand sketch. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to start building this wall. So if you recall, the detail that I'm going to do is basically a transition from a playground safety surface up to over 2 steps, and then concrete, and then a curb, and then grass. So you can see how quickly this is all going to pull together. So I'm just going to do that and start building. This is going to be my first step, but for a playground, a lot of it's going to be buried for the safety surface. So I'm going to draw my ground in my playground, or the top of my mulch first. Oh, that's the other thing. Obviously, you don't want to be drawing on layer 0. So what I'm going to do is pull in my load layer states for my detail layers. Great. So that just pulled in all my layers so that I can start drawing. And again, you can customize these layer states and save your own back into it. And it's all organized, at least if you use the land effects layer states, it's all organized based on our suggestions, but you're free to use whatever you want. So I'm going, this is already set up so that I can have all my different line weights as I draft. So I'm going to do just a regular line weight for most of this detail. Great, so part of that's just going to be buried. I'm just going to pull that over. It's the top of my playground. And my playground's going to be about, for the mulch, it's going to be a mulch safety surface. So it's going to be 0.3 meter depth or a foot depth compacted. Sorry, I'm in millimeters, so that's 300. There we go. And I'm going to just adjust that a little bit so that that top of my playground goes right to that first step. So it's only 1 step tall from the top of the mulch. Great, so that's definitely dictating to me, okay, so that's going to be buried, perfect. I'll pull that in. And I'm actually going to add in a few more because I'm going to want for the bottom of my playground this to be a little bit sloped for drainage. So I'm going to add a vertex to this line. And I am, we'll go here. Slope that just a little bit, about a foot away. Great, and add a vertex and slope that back up. And then just draw my drainage. I'm being a little bit loose in this one just because it's a webinar. So we'll pull in my drainage obviously you'll be a little bit more precise. My drain pipe's about 150, so 200 wide drainage trench should be good for this. Great. And I'm going to go up and grab my pipe because I saved that in already as well from my detail blocks. Just a strain pipe and pop that right in. Great, so for the step then, I'm going to need actually a coping piece on that top step. So I'm going to go in, grab my coping piece. And it's thrown that on the layer that I was in. So I might actually change my layer to be a little bit a heavier line weight as I'm drafting. And I'll throw these on the heavy line weight as well. I drew those blocks on layer 0 so that they would pull whatever layer I throw the blocks onto for their line weight. And you can kind of make that on a case-by-case basis depending on the detail. Or you can draw the block straight on a layer if you always know that it's going to be on a certain layer. So we're going to do that, and then I'll just pop that in and move it to the proper location so it's nice and snapped. So I've got my 2 steps now going up, and then I'm probably going to have a between my step and my concrete, I'm probably going to have an expansion joint. So I'm just going to draw that in quick, probably on a different layer for the expansion joint so that it pops up a little bit more. And we'll throw that in. And then I'll draw my concrete walkway. And we'll go over this a little bit more as we get to the end of this detail, but I'm going to be calling things out. So what I'm going to do in this detail, because it's just a profile, I'm not going to go too far into the detail of preciseness of like how the concrete is all pulled together. I'm just going to reference my standard detail for how to do the concrete. So I'm just going to draw it in semi-correctly in here. Snap there. And I'll probably want to do dimensions for the depth of the concrete and the width of that walkway. So we'll say the walkway is about 4 feet or 1,200 millimeters wide, and my concrete level is going to be about probably 4 inches deep. Yep. There we go. That's my concrete in there. I can pull that expansion joint actually back in a little bit. There we go. And pull that in just a bit. Probably should have used a dimension on that as well. So we're just going over some drafting techniques as well while we do this. And then this pops up to a curb. So it's just going to be a 6-inch curb if you're following along with this example. Great. And so that's in, and I'm going to just quickly draw my my grass on the other side. We'll go down to a swale first. And then up to a 3-to-1 slope. There we go. So that's my profile, and I'll quickly draw in just some base material for my retaining wall. Do that at a 45-degree slope. I'll do that in a little bit. And we'll put in the depth. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And I'll pull that over just a little bit. Okay, so that's ready to start pulling in some hatches now as well. I'll just close this off temporarily to put the hatch in. And that's a really easy tool up here. If you just, again, on your details tab, we have our hatches. And you saw me use this before for the, retaining wall block, and I'm just going to use it again for the detail. And you can pick inside just like you normally would for my curb and for my concrete. And we'll do that again for the rest of it. So we'll go and pick, actually, for my base material, I'll pick some stone, some gravel. And I'll pick some this for just to show my mulch. It's coming a little bit dense. I probably didn't set my scale, so I'll just pull that in. Or I can set my scale properly and it'll come in properly. So go over to FX Admin, go to Scale. My detail is probably going to be at, we'll say 1 to 25. And we'll try that again. Excellent, that worked. And one more time for the gravel. Perfect. Okay, so I have here, oh, I also need some clear stone for here. We'll grab that really quickly. Some loose gravel to show my clear stone. Excellent. So that's all put together, and I'll pull that out. And you can also use some other blocks that we already have saved into the system. I like using in discipline graphics, just this break line to show the edge. Oh, I shouldn't have deleted that. We'll do that. And pull that out. There we go. And we'll go back to break line. We'll put that in. Perfect. And we'll do the same thing here. Grab a break line and just put that in to show the edge of that detail. Excellent. Okay, so the other detail that I'm going to do, it's going to be a lot quicker. And I'm actually going to pull that, now that I see it, and put my drainage pipe in here as well. And just reset that hatch. It's really that easy to put in that hatch and everything's all put together again. So I can either pull from the blocks again to get the right, for my second retaining wall detail, I can either pull from the blocks again up here, or I can just copy these. I think I'm probably just going to copy them. I'll go over here and just place that in, and I'm going to mirror that. Keep the existing objects and move that over just a little bit to about the size that I want to show for my, this is the planter, raised planter. And I'll just show my walkway out, get myself on the correct layer. And I'm right-clicking to repeat the command. If that doesn't work for you as you're going through this and you're right-clicking and it's not repeating the command, that's a setting that you can set in your options in AutoCAD. Highly recommend just setting it so that for your right-click, if nothing is selected, that right-click repeats the command. We'll do this very quick. And if something is selected, that right click will pull up a menu for the right click menu for that object that's selected. And if you're in the middle of a command, right click basically means enter, so it will select whatever you're doing, whatever is the default for that command that you're in the middle of. And I'll go in here and I'll go to arc and just pull that in. And maybe make that a little less drastic. Great, it's starting to take shape. And I'll just continue just a little bit. So what I'm drawing in here is just some topsoil inside, and then I'm going to have it so that the root ball of the tree is sitting on existing earth compacted so that it doesn't sink, but you have a lot of topsoil around it. And again, this is just an example of what you can do. So I wouldn't copy this detail exactly, although it's going to be a pretty good detail as we go through. Okay, so going through that, you can use some of the blocks that we already have saved in the system. So for this one, I'm actually going to go to graphics, and I'm going to go to my elevation graphics and pull my plants and grab a tree from there to show in my large planter. I like this tree, I'm going to use that. And just scale that right up. Of course it doesn't work. It does work. I am going to use the align command actually and just make that work. There we go. Destination point, perfect. That, and we'll pull it up to a good tree size. Just to scale, perfect. Excellent, and I'll draw in a little bit of a root ball here. I'm going to do this very quickly. You would do, obviously, your details a lot more precise than I'm about to do. Excellent, and we'll throw some hatches on that one as well. For my topsoil. I probably didn't draw that perfect. No, I didn't. That's what's happening. Go back and we'll do that again. What didn't I draw? I'll just close that off just so that it'll work for this example. This is what happens when you don't draft perfectly. Okay, for my subsoil, there we go. And I'm going to grab some gravel for my backfill. Great. Okay, so I have my two details and they're basically ready to save. So we're going to learn how to use a few advanced techniques for saving details. So for these details, I might want to change them again and very quickly. And because they kind of relate to each other, I'm going to want to go back to them in the same place that they were before. So what I'm going to do is do a batch save. So that's why I saved the detail location from the beginning, just so that I can go back to this again. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in a template, and we'll just check and see which scale works for this one, but it's probably going to be a little wider. So we'll try that out. Make sure that my preference set is set okay. Yeah, it's going to need to be a little bit wider, but that's and a little bit of a bigger detail. I'll try 3A. That's good, but it's still just a little bit wide, but the 2 is not going to be wide enough. So what I can do is go to my 2 and grab a width extension and probably pop it up to be 2.5 instead. Perfect. Pop that in there, and then I'm going to do something similar for this detail. Probably I'm going to want that to be a 2 and maybe even 2 high as well. Yep, great. And I'm going to chop that tree off because the tree isn't very important for this detail, at least to show the whole thing. Mostly I'm interested in showing the contractor this part. So what I'm going to do is grab that tree. I'm just going to explode it and get rid of those top parts. Perfect. Okay, so at this point, obviously in the detail, now that you've placed your boundaries, you're probably going to want to do a lot of callouts. But like I said before, a lot of these items in this detail, I would have other standard details for to be able to call that out. You can also use our bubble callouts up here, if you haven't tried those out. I'm not going to go over it in this webinar, but feel free to try those out. But one really cool thing that I like using a lot is actually using a detail callout like you would normally use in your plan, but just use it in your detail. So I'm going to go ahead, grab that. There we go. And it's going to pop up to the Detail Explorer, and I'm going to find my detail. I had saved, I don't have a lot of details saved right now on my computer in the standard details, but normally I would have them somewhere in here under exterior improvements, probably concrete paving in here, and grab something in. Oh, actually, I do have some in there. But I can also, the ones particular for this webinar I've saved up here. So I'm just going to grab some medium duty natural concrete. And it's the exact same as if you were doing it in a plan. So you can either use the naked callout. We have it doesn't have any title or any leader or any bubble on it, so that you can put it in your notes in a detail if you want, and we have a great power tip on that. Or you can use a regular call out. So I'm actually going to do it with a detailed title and with a leader and everything, and just in this detail I'm going to call out this other item and this other detail. and it will pull in blank for your detail. But once you put it in, and I'll show you once I put it in a drawing, that's going to fill out to show exactly where that detail is saved. If it's saved in the project already, it'll show what sheet it's on. So that's a really cool little thing there. And then you can call out for your playground. You can call out for your sod. I have sod in here as well, so I'll probably just call that out just to kind of show what it does. There we go. Excellent. And you can also, you would take this detail a little bit further and start annotating it with some text with leaders and probably some dimensions as well. I'm going to skip that right now for the interest of time, and we're going to go ahead and start saving these details as they are. So what I'm going to do is use, I'm going to set up this drawing. I've already started, like I said, for a batch save. For the batch save, you can't start with batch saving. You have to save these individually the first time. And that's just so that you can pick out the appropriate spot for it. You're going to want to do that anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Save Detail, and it's going to ask me which detail boundary I want to select, or I have this window for multiple. Again, for the first time saving these, you're going to want to select the details individually. And I'm going to save them up here in the test. Or you would probably want to save it in a project. Maybe I'll do that. I'll go to Parks, and I'm going to start a new folder for this project. And I'm going to call it my Silver Pine Park. And it'll give it code, or you can choose a code like your project codes that you normally use for your projects, your number that you reference in your general folders, or you can go with the code that it automatically puts in. I'll just go with what it automatically puts in, and I can start saving my details to this project specific folder. And I'm just going to call that retaining wall section. And I can add this to my my project, so it'll pop up in there automatically. Okay, and I'm going to save this one as well using the same process. We'll call that planter section. Great. Now in the future, I can, again, I've been saving this all along through the process and saving it into the same folder as the rest of my project. And now if I need to change anything, say make this wall a little higher or do anything, I can just come in here, make the changes to this wall, make the changes to that wall. Maybe I'm using a completely different type of wall, so I change out both of these details for a different block for that retaining wall, and then I go ahead to go save detail, and I choose this window multiple. I'm going to click on it to choose it. You can also do the W for window, and then I'm going to do a window around all the details that I want to save. So I could have 50 details on this page, and I've only made changes to maybe 2 of them, and I just want to save those 2 really quickly, or maybe I've made changes to 5, want to save all 5 really quickly. I just do a window around them, and it's done. And it saved both of those details and overwrote them with all of the changes that I've made to them. And it would go ahead and you could run an update for the details on your page, and it'll pull that in. So I'm going to go ahead now, and we're back over to the section. We're going to go ahead and place these and go over a few advanced detail callout tools that you can use to kind of keep your project very clear and easy to read for contractors. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm already in my project again, and I can pull in those details, and they should have automatically saved themselves. Yes, they did. into my project because I asked them to. You can also, if you want any details that are in a certain folder to be automatically pulled into a project, you can also go to your project manager in here and you can pick that detail folder. So I can go to that parks and set this project that is my detail folder, and now any further details that I save to that folder will automatically add themselves into this project for ease of just pulling in. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling in those details. So I'm going to go to my manager and grab that, and I'm going to go place and place it in, and then I'm going to grab my other one and place that in as well. Excellent, so those two are in. Now the really cool thing that I wanted to show you is that you can call out details you may not have known, but you can call out details even if they're on another sheet, so or in another drawing entirely. So all of my other details in my project are on another sheet called in another file called details 1, and they're all saved there. But you can see here that that call out that I placed before in my detail is calling out the exact placement of that this detail, and you can see over here in my manager that I can confirm that that detail is saved on page D1. Ignore what's happening here. That's just that's me setting up a project for a webinar and kind of doing something funky to be able to make it work. But yours will just obviously have one for each. And you can see here, so that medium duty natural concrete is placed as detail 11 on page D1. And now my detail, as I placed it in this drawing, is already calling it out. So that's really cool. And also, if you assign this to a reference note and you pull this detail, say if this was a standard detail, you pull it into a project, it would also pull, and you hadn't actually pulled that medium duty natural concrete into your project manager list yet. As soon as you place this detail, it'll pull that detail into your list so you can place it as well. So that's a really, really neat feature for big time saving. So I'm going to go ahead and save this and go back to my plan and start calling these out. So the cool thing about this, let's go ahead to the callouts. Once I go and I pick those details on page D3 and press OK, I'm going to try out this nifty section callout right here. Great. And we'll pull that in here and we'll just pull it up. Great, and I'm going to pull the title off of that as well. I'm going to do the call out again. Okay, and go back to options. Sorry, I'm right clicking to go to options. Again, right click to accept the default in here. And I'm just going to pull, I'm going to do a regular one just to be able to pull the title. Oh, okay, the title went down there. That's why. I'll pull this up just so that it's a bit in a clear section. Great, and I can call out my planter wall detail as well. I'm going to do that one a little bit more normally. And we'll find that and get my planter section. And we'll call out one of my planters. There we go. And the interest, here's another tip that we've kind of done before, I'm actually going to go ahead and assign that detail because I want this reference note to also pull into that detail title so that I can also reference my reference note schedule at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my reference notes, and I've already set up a reference note for this retaining wall, and that's just under 32. There we go. And I'm going to edit it, landscape retaining wall. There we go. I've already set a layer to it and a price and everything. What I'm going to do now is set a detail to it. So I can set any detail, probably one just for a retaining wall, but I'll pull this one. Say OK. Great. And I'm going to do this detail one more time. And you can see that now it's going to pull to the reference node as well. Go to Callout, grab that planter section detail. I'm going to go with Options. I'm going to do Include Reference Note and pull that in. There we go. And it's basically all ready to go. And yeah, so I hope you were able to pull a few tips from this process on making details. And basically, I wanted to share kind of the story of if you need to make a detail that's custom, and obviously you need to make that every time, you want to be able to reduce the amount of time that you're spending on your details when you're trying to make them from scratch. So what you really want to do is save in all the blocks that you know that you're going to use on a regular basis so that you can really quickly pull them. Also, if you know that you're always using a certain manufacturer, let us know and we'll see what we can do about maybe putting those blocks in as well. And when you're calling out your details, do it smartly. Do it with a dynamic call out that's going to do most of the work for you as you're drafting your details. You might move different details to different sheets. So you want the contractor not to get confused because you may have missed one call out somewhere, or you've called out your concrete in your detail, but he doesn't necessarily know what sheet that detail is on. You want to be able to make the process of him building your landscape as easy as possible. So with that, that's about everything that I want to share for detail tricks. Maybe we can end this off. If there were any questions, we can cover those.
Did get a couple questions. I was able to answer them. And if anyone has any remaining questions, really quickly, get them typed in. And because we got a couple minutes here, if anyone had any remaining questions. Um, but from the questions that I was able to answer, it seems that everyone's got a good level of learning out of this, and a lot of questions on things like, saving their details, editing the details, basically the challenges of kind of getting your details into the Landifix detail system. So I do hope that it does seem that overall everyone really sees the benefits of doing a lot of these techniques. But I think it looks like no questions are coming in, so I'm going to assume that we took care of everything fantastically. So have a great weekend, everybody.